Hi guys, it's me, HD, and welcome to the final 2 hours of day 2 of 2022 pre-season testing. Hopefully you guys are doing well, and hopefully you'll be joining me today in either watching along the final 2 hours of the session, or if you can't watch the session because you're at work or whatever, then just make sure to listen along, and I'll make sure to keep you bang up to date with what is going on. Hopefully you guys are doing well, and hopefully you'll be as excited as I am to see these final 2 hours. And as you can see on the left hand side of the screen, the lap times are getting quicker, meaning of course everyone is pushing, or maybe not everyone, but you know, they're getting quicker and quicker and pushing harder and harder. Now I'll read out the running order in just a moment. Just want to say, I know the lap times on the left hand side are a bit broken. It's because the FOM lap times that they have, you know, for the timing system were actually very broken a minute ago, and they only just corrected itself. So I will update the lap times from, say, Vettel down to Guan Yu Zhou in 15th place. But let me just read out what the order is. Carlos Sainz is currently quickest with 2 hours to go of day 2. He did his time, by the way, on the C4 compound, the soft compound tyre. Lance Stroll is second. He also did his time on the C4. Ocon third. He did his best time in the morning, again on the C4 compound. Leclerc fourth. He did his best time in the morning on the C3. And then you got Lewis Hamilton in 5th place. Hamilton is currently on track. Did his best time on the C3 compound. And then you got Norris, Verstappen, Vettel, Tsunoda, Bottas, Schumacher, Magnussen, Russell, Latifi, and Guan Yu Zhou is doing clearly a race run towards the rear of the order. And then, of course, Perez, Gasly, Ricciardo, Albon, and Alonso are not going to be driving today. With Daniel Ricciardo, by the way, sadly, he is still ill, which is, of course, not good news because he does need to get some running in. Hopefully, he can get, say, all of tomorrow for the McLaren team, but not looking great in terms of him getting confidence in the car going into next week's Grand Prix, which of course is at the same track, the Bahrain International Circuit. So yeah, at the minute we're just looking at what I think Lewis Hamilton is about to start a lap on the soft compound tyre. We'll see what he can do on this lap. We're not currently seeing any data, and now we are, as to what he is doing for lap time. We'll see what he does in comparison to Carlos Sainz for the first sector to determine whether he's actually pushing or, you know, Mercedes are running that lower fuel or higher engine mode. We'll see what his first sector time is like. He runs a bit wide at turn 4, and he is about 3.5 tenths down for the first sector. I still think Mercedes, I mean, as we've seen today so far, if you have watched some of testing so far today, Mercedes and Red Bull are still sandbagging quite heavily in comparison, really, to the rest of the field. So I don't think you'll see, maybe until the final 2 hours of tomorrow's test, I don't think you'll see them really do a similar run to Ferrari in terms of fuel load and engine mode as well. As Hamilton running slightly wide at turn 11, almost going off the track. And he is on the soft compound tyre about 1.5 seconds down. And yeah, they're definitely not running as aggressively as Ferrari. But let me just quickly update these lap times to make sure they are correct. Let's see what Lewis Hamilton does here. He comes to the line, and Lewis Hamilton doesn't actually go any quicker than his previous time on the C3 compound. So yeah, they're definitely running conservative on fuel load. But yeah, let me just update the rest of the gaps. So Sebastian Vettel about 2.4 down, and then Yuki Tsunoda, who is the driver for AlphaTauri today. But he has been doing really race runs from what I can see so far. Hopefully, like his teammate yesterday, Pierre Gasly, hopefully he will go out and do some low fuel running and get out on the C4 or C5 compound tyre. Let me just update the last few. Got Mick Schumacher, Kevin Magnussen, who is on track. Great to see him back, of course, in Formula 1. Russell, down in, 13th place, of course, was driving this morning. And then you've got Latifi, who had a fire to his car earlier. I think the rear brakes caught on fire for him. I don't think we're probably going to see much of him, if I'm going to be honest. As now, on the broadcast, as all the lap times, by the way, now are fixed. And, all the positions are as it says on screen. We're currently looking at Esteban Ocon, who is on a aggressive-ish looking run by the look of it. He's not on that aggressive of a tyre compound because he's on the prototype C2 compound. But Ocon continues on his way. We've got Lance Stroll, who is currently sat in second place on an outlap. And Ocon, I just think, continuing on a bit of a race run at the moment, as he continues going through turn 1. And now we can look at Lance Stroll, who I think, is he going back into the pits? Yes, he is. So Lance Stroll comes back into the pits for Aston Martin. And the only cars we have out on track at the moment are Esteban Ocon and I'm going to say Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton being the only cars on track. Lance Stroll, though, is coming back out. He's on the C3 compound of tyre, and also so is Max Verstappen. As Hamilton, I think, is just touring through the pits to come back out yet again. And there's a shot of Fernando Alonso just looking on. Not been the greatest track condition today. Quite windy. Very dusty offline, and a lot cooler than yesterday. Actually, not even really sunny. It's very foggy and misty at the Sakhir track. So, not the best conditions to be testing how your car is, to be honest. But, for the Grand Prix next weekend, these conditions could repeat itself. So, they need to still get a gauge of where they are. As Max Verstappen has come out on the C2 compound of tyre. And, to me, it looks as though Mercedes obviously pushing quite a bit harder today than they were yesterday. But in comparison to Red Bull, I think Red Bull are probably sandbagging now the most out of any team. Because all they've done today, really, are runs on the hard compound tyre. Which, to me, it points to them not wanting to show their hand. Because I think they they know they're going to be a front-running team in some way, shape, or form this season. But I think they are quietly confident in what they have. And I think when you look at it on track, the Red Bull, it looks a good car. It's very well balanced. I'm not sure if it is the best car yet. It's hard to say at the moment because they are, still sandbagging quite a bit. But the Red Bull does still look pretty good. Let me just quickly take a look at Twitter to see if there's any news, by the way, going on. Just making sure, actually, that my links and all have gone out for the stream. Let me just make sure on all of that. And yep, they have. But, Red Bull definitely nowhere near the limit. Same with Mercedes, but Mercedes, it seems as though, are starting to push a bit harder, which is great to see. As Lance Stroll on yet another outlap for Aston Martin. Aston Martin, pace-wise, look a tad better than yesterday. Yesterday, I thought they looked a bit worrisome with their pace and also the handling of the car. I mean, from what I've seen so far today, the handling of the car is not that much better, but the pace seems to be a tad better than what we saw yesterday. So that is a minor positive for the Aston Martin team, but they are still, I mean, easily midfield, I guess, cannon fodder, you might say. I still don't think the Aston Martin car is really that great, if I'm going to be honest. As now we've got Max Verstappen on the hard compound tyre coming a bit slowly towards the final corner. As Carlos Sainz, the man who is currently quickest, is out on track on an outlap, as Max Verstappen will come back into the pit lane. If you are watching the session, when they go offline, you can very much tell how dusty and dirty the track is, as Hamilton, Lewis Hamilton, I think, unless that was an Alpine, I'm not sure. There was one car that was continuing on then for a quicker, not a quicker lap, but just another lap. As it looks as though Lando Norris, after spending quite a bit of time in the pits, is about to come back out on track. And thankfully, great timing. He's on screen. Yeah, like I said in yesterday's review of day one, they're having to mitigate for the brake issues that I think they're probably still having. So they can't really, at the moment, McLaren, do as long of a run as they want to. They don't really have that power. They're having to do shorter runs. And the reason that is because I think they're having dramatically rising brake temperatures. So that's why, if you're wondering why, McLaren are not doing as many laps as maybe they did in Barcelona, it's because of that issue. As we've got Hamilton, Norris, Verstappen, Sainz, and Stroll on an outlap. Carlos Sainz has come out on the C5 compound tyre. So let's see if he can go even quicker as he heads down the foggy pit straight and into turn one. No porpoising at all for the Ferrari. Looks very well balanced when it comes to that particular issue. And now through turn 1, 2, and 3, car looks absolutely fine and planted. Opens the DRS up to turn 4. And gets the car in nicely. Uses all of the track on exit, which they are apparently doing now. He is, though, a tenth of a second down in the first sector. The first sector, though, not the most important sector of this track. The middle sector that he's now in, I'd probably say the most important one, given the amount of important corners, such as the one he's heading into now, turn 9 and turn 10, and he gets through it very, very well indeed. Now opens the DRS, heading to turn 11, when a corner that, when it's windy, is a bit tricky, and yet running as far wide as he would want to in that corner. And his middle sector, yeah, he's about 0.6 of a second off. He's not going to go any quicker than his previous best, which was on the C4. It does appear, though, around this circuit at least, that the C5, it is quicker than the C4, but it's not that much quicker. It's only maybe 2-3 tenths at most quicker than the C4. It's almost like it's just a slight bit more on top of the C4 tyre in terms of a gain of lap time. It's not like a proper difference, if you compare the C4 to the C3, the C3 to the C2. With the C5, it's just an extra couple tenths pretty much, which is not absolutely groundbreaking, I would say. We saw yesterday with Gasly, who went, I think, was it a tenth and a half, 2 tenths quicker than his previous best on the C4. As Lando Norris has come out on the C3 compounded tyre. His best time so far, a 1:35.7, was done on the C2. So, we'll hopefully see a more representative time from the McLaren of Norris in regards in the final hour and 45. Hopefully we'll see more representative time as to, what the pace of the McLaren is. To be fair, though, that time of a 1:35.7 on the C2 compared to Carlos Sainz on the C4, it's not too bad of a lap, I wouldn't say. But it's nothing special, but it's not too bad. As Lance Stroll passes Norris, who I think is just doing an aero test, to be honest. As he now comes into the penultimate corner onto the back straight. And we've also got Kevin Magnussen and Guan Yu Zhou on an outlap. Haven't yet seen, with Haas F1, any more pace, really, than what you would have seen last season in comparison to the rest of the field. Doesn't seem as though at the moment they've really shown that they're actually any quicker in comparison to the rest of the field. There's definitely not evidence there as of yet, from what I've seen overall from testing so far, to suggest that Haas F1 are not the slowest team. As Norris back into the pits. And Carlos Sainz back out on an outlap, hopefully on another set of C4 or C5 tyres to try and go quicker. As Max Verstappen on an outlap, and so is Lance Stroll as well. And we're now looking at Kevin Magnussen, who looks as though he's pushing a bit on the C2 compound. Magnussen down in P12, about 4.5 seconds off the pace. Valtteri Bottas in 10th in the Alfa Romeo, 3.5 seconds off the pace. I think Bottas did his time on the C2, I think. So, and even if it was on the C3, in comparison to the two Haases, it's not looking great, is it, for Haas to be that far back? As Magnussen continues on. Great to see him back in Formula 1. In terms of his quality as a driver, I don't think he deserved necessarily to lose his seat. We saw back in 2018, even 2019 in certain qualifying sessions, Kevin Magnussen is easily fast enough, and he does actually go quicker, up to a 1:37.8, only about a tenth of a second quicker, mind you. We saw in 2018 and 2019, again in certain qualifying sessions, that Kevin Magnussen is a very, very quick driver. And as long as he stays away from other cars, due to, his certain reputation, he can be a good Formula 1 driver. I don't really, I've never really been, a big hater, I guess you could call it, even though I don't really want to use that word because it's, a bit strong. I've never really been that disliking, I guess you could say, of Kevin Magnussen. He's always been very, very good. And I think, to be honest, when you look at his F1 career, I think he's actually been unlucky. I thought his first year at McLaren, yeah, he could have beaten Jenson Button if he really wanted to absolutely prove that he should have stayed at McLaren. But I think his first year in Formula 1 was a good season. Was he as good as Jenson Button? No, but got a podium in his first ever Grand Prix, had quite a lot of points finishes, had a couple qualifying sessions as well throughout the season that were pretty strong. Remember one race where he put it on the second row of the grid in a McLaren car that was not really that good. It was only, normally around 7th, 8th place, normally, on the grid. And then, of course, sadly lost his seat due to Alonso coming to the team, and also slight politics as well with Honda, I think preferring Jenson Button in the car. And then obviously came back into F1 with Renault, who had an awful car, then got ditched from that team, even though he was clearly better than Jolie and Palmer And then, of course, found his home at Haas F1, where I think he did pretty well in 2017, 18, 19. Just sadly, the car got worse. The team has been a bit of a joke in the last 2 or 3 years, or 2 or 3 seasons. And that's what led to him losing his seat. But Kevin Magnussen, without doubt, is good enough to be in Formula 1. Easily quick enough. And if Haas have a car that can be remotely competitive, even if it is for just Alfa Romeo, then I think Magnussen will show that he still has the speed. As we're looking at Max Verstappen pushing on a lap on the hard compound tyre. And he is closely following Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. Sorry, who's on an outlap is the Canadian. As Verstappen gets a nice slipstream. Now down to turn 1. Will he go for the move? Probably. Yep, he does. And Stroll, hopefully, will not repeat his antics with Fernando Alonso yesterday and try and re-overtake and possibly get a bit messy with Max, as Lewis Hamilton has re-entered the circuit for hopefully another shorter fueled run, as Verstappen continues on with about an hour and a half to go. And yep, Lewis Hamilton is out on track on a set of C4 compound tyres, and he's babying these tyres around the outlap, which would, as a Alpine of Ocon, looks as though it's coming to a stop on the exit of, or the entry to the penultimate corner. So this is going to cause a red flag. His dashboard said anti-stall, so I'm assuming there's some kind of issue, some kind of gremlin with the car. Of course, remember, the Alpine is the only, and yet, red flag. So the timer will keep running. It's basically like a practice session. There's a red flag during testing, then the timer keeps going on. But yeah, remember, the Alpine is the only Renault-powered car on the grid. And it was, of course, the only Renault-powered car last season. So, and we've heard even and seen, I think, that reliability has been an issue for Alpine. We heard some rumours over the off season that Alpine were pushing very hard on the engine side with Renault. They are basically the Renault works team still. And there were rumours that they were not looking reliable. And if you look at the shakedown in Barcelona and what we've seen so far here, you would have to say, yes, Alpine are not reliable, because yesterday they really did not do that many laps compared to what they really needed to do. So far today, Ocon did pretty well for running. And, you know, the amount of laps he did. But then, you know, he's now had this problem. So, not good for the Alpine team, because their pace, I mean, I don't think they have a really standout-ish quick car. You know, I don't think they're going to be joining the front runners anytime soon. They look to be kind of just where they were last season, Alpine, but you can't go and get good results with any car, no matter how quick it is, of course, if you can't finish. As we see Otmar Saf now, the new team principal of the Alpine team. Great pick up that for Alpine. And Ocon now gets out of the car. And that'll probably be Alpine's day finished, I'd imagine. Which is, of course, a shame for them. But yeah, Alpine, coming into this season, I think you have to say they, you know, considering as well when the new regs were absolutely confirmed, I think was at the end of 2019. Obviously back then they were the Renault Works team. This really was their chance to finally rise from being just a midfield contender to being a front runner, which is really what Renault came back into Formula One for. And given what I've seen so far of the car in terms of speed, and given the reliability issues we've seen so far, it really just isn't looking good for Alpine. I mean, they're still looking competitive to a certain extent. They're going to be contending for points finishes, I think, probably in 2022 with other teams like AlphaTauri, Williams possibly, Aston Martin, but they're not going to be really any quicker than they were last year. And that's an issue. I mean, they're not the only team where that's an issue. For Aston Martin also, this was supposed to be the start of them building a front-running, race-winning team. But Aston Martin look like, they're no quicker than last year. And you could argue with Aston Martin that they're, in terms of the pecking order and, who the quickest teams are, you could argue Aston Martin are probably worse off this season because their car has not looked good. The front end, especially of the Aston Martin, does not look good at all. Yeah, disappointing for Ocon, who's had a good run today, but his car has sadly let him down. But during this red flag period, guys, if you have any comments or questions you want to put in the chat, to make sure to do so, just to let everyone know who is watching, I will be live tonight at 7 PM UK time to go over and review the day's action and go through, the lap times, who I thought had a good day, any other pieces of news. We'll go through all of it tonight, just like we did last night for day 1. And of course, I will be live tomorrow for day 3 of pre-season testing. And tomorrow, of course, is the final day of testing. I will be, though, tomorrow live for longer. The reason I'm going live for longer tomorrow is because, well, there's going to be more probably people watching, I think, tomorrow because it's a Saturday. Obviously, people are at work and all that at the moment, so it's harder for people to watch the streams at this time of day for people, in Europe. So I will be live for longer tomorrow for day 3. I'm going to be covering the entire afternoon session. I'll be live from 11:30 AM UK time, which is about half an hour before the start of the afternoon session, and then live for all 4 hours of the final 4 hours of pre-season testing. And then later, at 7 PM UK time tomorrow night, on Saturday night, I'll be live for pretty much the review of pre-season testing, and hopefully I'm going to try and get Nib on for one of the streams tomorrow. Probably going to be, to be honest, the review of testing stream, but yeah, hopefully I can get him on for tomorrow and try and get his thoughts and hopefully get his predictions by tomorrow evening, as the Alpine mechanics have come to rescue their car and put the sheet on it so no one looks at it or, gets any ideas from what they are using or running on the car. Whilst this breakdown has occurred, let me go to Twitter and read out any pieces of news. Williams, by the way, are done for the day after that fire in the morning. But let me just try and find any pieces of news that possibly is out there in the sphere. Just reading here. Andres Seidel says that Ferrari gives a very strong impression. The car looks planted on track and good to drive both in Barcelona and now in Bahrain. I'd have to agree. One tweet here by Tammy, who, if anyone's on Twitter, you know that this Twitter account is very good for, translating news from other publications. And this tweet which kind of quotes Helmut Marko, kind of vindicates me a bit, because it's kind of the order at the front that I think we are currently seeing. It says you can add Helmut Marko to that list, who told Automotor and Sport that for the current moment, he thinks it's Ferrari who have the quickest car, Red Bull are second, and the Mercedes and McLaren are tied for third. But he emphasised that it's only an assessment of the current situation. Red Bull will bring their big upgrade tomorrow. So hopefully we'll see what they really have when they get that upgrade on. But honestly, I mean, I think I said this at the end of the first test / shakedown, that I thought it was Ferrari, Red Bull, and the Mercedes, McLaren. And honestly, if you look at what we've seen so far, I think that's what it looks like. Again, Mercedes and Red Bull still pretty much sandbagging. They're nowhere near their limit, nowhere near as close to the limit as, say, Ferrari are, or, you know, the midfield teams. But when I look at that Mercedes car on track, it doesn't look as good as the Ferrari or the Red Bull. And also, Andreas Seidel said that this morning, Ricciardo already felt a bit better. They have to see whether he'll be fit for tomorrow, but there is no pressure. Most important thing is that Ricciardo is ready for next week. Carlos Sainz also saying you could see that we've made a few modifications to the floor, but there is more to come. I hope the car will. I hope it will be ready for the race next week. Also, Sainz firmly rejecting George Russell's comments that Ferrari is the best car. Christian Horner telling Sky Germany that Ferrari looks great whenever they head out on track, but also said that Mercedes have not showed their true hand. True, but also Red Bull haven't either. And yeah, Ferrari, they have updated the floor of their car, just for confirmation. Let me see if there's anything else. I don't think so. But in regards to, what do you call it, Andreas Seidel and Helmut Marko thinking that, you know, the Ferrari have the best car, I have to agree. I have not seen right now, as I sit here and say this, I have not seen any evidence to suggest that Ferrari don't have the best car at the moment. That absolutely could change tomorrow if Mercedes and Red Bull put in a proper low fuel run, or even in next week's Grand Prix. But at the moment, Ferrari look as though they have the best car. And then, like Helmut Marko said, I'd probably say Red Bull are second quickest, and then it's hard to say with Mercedes and McLaren in comparison to each other, and also in comparison to Ferrari and Red Bull exactly where they are, but third and fourth seems to be where Mercedes and McLaren are at the moment. But yeah, I think Ferrari and Red Bull having the two best cars, I think that's pretty much at the moment the consensus amongst most people. I also think most people are being cautious because they know that Mercedes and Red Bull have not shown how quick they probably are ahead of the Grand Prix next weekend, as Albon's car's being put on the back of the truck. Luckily, it's not Baku. Don't have to worry about any bridges. And the session should be back underway very quickly, because once they get that car lowered down and get it, strapped to it, and the truck is allowed to drive back to the pits, because he's so close to the pits, it won't take him that long to get back to the car, get back to the pits with the Alpine car, as McLaren or Lando Norris looks as though he's probably ready to go out when the session is restarted. Mercedes grouped in a bit of a talk around the back of the car. And yeah, hopefully the session will restart in a moment. So in the final hour and 25, we can try and get some more headline, possibly lap times, as Aston Martin currently working on the floor, possibly front right brake of his car, or of the car rather than his car. And yeah, just waiting pretty much. And Lewis Hamilton just waiting as well. Still got his helmet on. He's out of the car, but still got his helmet on. And when the session gets back underway again, I'm sure they'll be back out on track probably 2 or 3 minutes after the resumption of the session. As the darkness begins to fall and descend on the Bahrain track. A bit earlier than it did yesterday. Reason being, because of course we haven't really had sunshine in this afternoon session. Been very foggy and a bit darker cloud-wise. And hopefully that truck is on the way back to the pits. As they're just working with the McLaren. I think they're working on the suspension area of Lando Norris's car. And I'm pretty sure Norris is still in the car, just waiting for the go-ahead to get back out there. And to be honest, it'd be great to see where the truck is, because it would be great to know when we're getting back underway. Like I said, if you want to ask any questions or post any comments in chat, and make sure to go for it. And yeah, McLaren is doing some slight work to the suspension area. Alfa Romeo look probably the most ready out of any team, to be honest, to get out on track. And now they take away the screens. So I assume they think that the session will be underway in a couple minutes' time. But it is still, at the moment, a red flag. And yeah, we'll just wait and see when we get going again. This, honestly, this has just reminded me of the Belgian Grand Prix from last year, which I honestly hope never happens again, because that just felt like abuse, to be honest. The session will resume in 2 minutes' time, thankfully. Yeah, that Grand Prix was, and the stream that I did, which I thought I did a good job, because you know, to talk nonsense for 3.5 hours is, I think, pretty good. You know, you have to be pretty good to do that. So I'd say I did pretty well at doing that, but it's not something I ever want to relive. I don't think anyone wants to relive that day, because it was just the biggest cock tease of all time. Especially when they said, oh, we're going to get going, and then it was basically just a lap or two under the safety car. Yep, in probably 30 seconds' time, the cars will be allowed back out on track. And they're just showing now on screen side pod comparison. And Mercedes, well, the Mercedes doesn't have side pod, so there's no real point comparing the two. And hopefully the session should be back now underway. And now they're showing the comparison between the Mercedes and McLaren. McLaren's definitely quite a bit bulkier. I will say, though, the Williams side pod that they're showing now is also a bit of an interesting one. They also have a hole, I think, or somewhere around that region. So Williams also have a pretty interesting design. And if it does work for them, as you can see on the screen now, that design, then it could lead, could lead to them being a proper midfield contender. As Guan Yu Zhou is lined up at the exit of the pit lane, and now the green light goes. So we are back underway with an hour and 20 minutes of day 2 of pre-season testing. And Guan Yu Zhou comes out on a set of C3 compound tyres. So hopefully he'll do a shorter fuel run, because he's currently down in 15th place, 8.2 seconds off the pace. Of course, he's been doing a race run, I think on the C2 hard compound tyre. That's Guan Yu Zhou. As Kevin Magnussen is about to come out on track. He's going to do a practice start at the exit of the pit lane. By the way, reminder, I talked about this on my day 1 review. Haas, because they failed to show up to the first 4 hours of testing on Thursday morning, they will be allowed, I think, 2 hours extra today at the end of the official running, and then I think the same tomorrow to make up the difference. I think that's what's going to happen, because the sporting regulations say that, has to take place testing on those 3 days. So, yeah. As Lance Stroll is also back out on track. And Stroll, I think, is on the C3 compound tyre. If I have that right. As Stroll into the end of his outlap, pushing quite hard. Pushing quite hard on this outlap is Stroll. And what tyre is he on? Oh no, he's actually on the prototype tyre, and he'll probably no, he will continue for a lap. Probably won't go any quicker, because that or any quicker than his time so far, because of course the time he did of a 1:34.0 was on the C4 compound tyre, which is probably about a second per lap quicker than the hard compound tyre. So I doubt he'll go any quicker. As Carlos Sainz getting his helmet back on, and he's going to be getting back out there. As Stroll continues on. Also, Ferrari being a bit cheeky with the regulations. It says you're not allowed to put a screen up in front of the car to block, the view of the car in the garage for, the media, spectators, all that. So what they've done is they've parked a little thing, a smaller screen with an actual top to put, laptops on, to I think fire the car up. So they are technically still blocking the view of the car, at least for the media, which is pretty pointless, to be honest, to be, start doing silly stuff like that. As Stroll continues on the prototype compound. And continues the rest of his lap. As Kevin Magnussen is on, as Lewis Hamilton looks as though he's sparking a lot, by the way, Lewis Hamilton, down to turn 1. Porpoising quite a bit, probably. Kevin Magnussen is out there on an improved lap. He's on the C3 compound. And now we cut to him. And Magnussen is just coming through turn 11, now into turn 12. And let's see what his time looks like so far. He's only 2 seconds down on Carlos Sainz, so he will go probably up to 9th place, I'd imagine, with this time. Magnussen heads to the final corner, and looks pretty good in the final corner. Comes to the line, and Kevin Magnussen does indeed go 9th and is 2.9 seconds off the pace. There you go, Kevin Magnussen up to P9. Just update how far off he is. I think 2.978, I think it was. As we're seeing Lewis Hamilton pushing very hard, by the look of it, on the C4 compound tyre as the porpoises quite a bit to the final corner. Throws it into the final corner. And will he come back into the pits or continue on? Let's see as he comes to the line, Lewis Hamilton. And I don't know if there's any improvement. And again, porpoises a lot down to turn 1. Mercedes have got to have, was it that issue, the porpoising down the straight where you're bouncing up and down repeatedly? They're probably the worst team at the minute for that. And it really is not going to help them. I mean, it's not going to help the drivers when it comes to the smoothness of their ride, but it also is not going to help the floor, you know, bouncing up and down like that repeatedly. And also is a replay from the exit of turn 13. Getting quite a bit of oversteer. And then again, porpoise down to the final corner. But yeah, just with Mercedes at the minute, again, their car doesn't look terrible. It's not like, you know, McLaren or Ferrari in 2009 or anything like that, but it's definitely not as quick as last year's car from what I can see at the minute. You know, last year's car was pretty much equal with Red Bull as the best car, and it would pretty much alternate every 2 or 3 races. They don't look like they're in that position right now. They really don't. Of course, they are still yet to show as much of their hand, but when you look at it on track compared to the Ferrari, balance-wise and grip-wise, that Mercedes car is not as good at the minute as the Ferrari. As now we're looking at Guan Yu Zhou, who continues, I think, on a race run. But I'm going to try get this if I can. As Lewis Hamilton, by the way, is back in the pits, going to try and get the correct timing for Kevin Magnussen in terms of the gap behind. And there you go. That should be correct. And just do the rest quickly for Tsunoda and Bottas. Tsunoda in the Alpha Tauri's McLaren over stoppage on track of Lando Norris. It looks as though it's the exit of the pit lane. We'll see if he can get going or anything like that. But this is probably going to be another red flag. And yep, there you go, red flag. He barely got out of the pit lane before breaking down. Did the McLaren. Dashboard completely off, completely black on the screen. And now gets out of the car. Thankfully, though, it's close to the pit lane, so it's not going to take that long to get back into the pits. Probably take 5-10 minutes at most. Just need to wheel it back down into the pit lane, and then the mechanics can recover it. I mean, maybe the mechanics will just come to that part of the track to recover it, like they can in testing during a red flag period. But that, yeah, that is a shame. That really is for McLaren, because that's probably means that their day now is over when they need to be getting in more running. And McLaren, you have to say, have had a very quite a tough pre-season test here in Bahrain. Only 50 laps done yesterday due to brake problems. They still have the brake problems. Daniel Ricciardo was supposed to drive yesterday, supposed to drive today, but he's ill. And now they have this. It really is hampering McLaren a lot. As Norris, I think, just stood waiting for someone to come recover the car as the McLaren mechanics are all walking to the, I think, the exit of the pit lane to wait for the car to come back so they can wheel it back into the garage. But and we're now seeing Esteban Ocon, who of course caused the red flag of what was it, 20 minutes ago? And Norris, I think he's attempting to push the car back himself into the pit lane, which thankfully it's not too far, but he'll probably need help eventually with that. And well, this will be the slowest, most agonizing thing he's ever done in his life. And of course, racing drivers do everything pretty quickly. As now, marshals, thankfully, are starting to help him. Let me just quickly, though, stand up a minute and... hold on. Let me just quickly press back up on my Skybot. It's about to go into standby mode. There you go. And yeah, now a load of marshals coming to help Norris push his car back into the pit lane. And as soon as it gets back into the pit lane, the mechanics then can take over and wheel it back to the garage. As by the time we get going again, we're only going to have an hour left of day 2. As there's pretty much no one on the McLaren pit wall as he continues to wheel back in his McLaren. In chat, guys, let me know, do you think Ferrari have the best car at the minute? From what you've seen so far, you know, Barcelona and Bahrain, of what you've seen of it on track. And do you believe the hype regarding the Ferrari team? I mean, for me, I still don't want to get too overhyped, because we've done this in the past with Ferrari where we've got too overhyped and then they've ended up kind of disappointing us. But they're definitely front runners for this season, and I think definitely have probably one of the 2 best cars on the grid. I'd say at the moment I think they do have the best car, and I think until Mercedes and Red Bull start to push harder, I think we are yet to really see whether anyone else is quicker compared to the Ferrari team. So yeah, let me know in chat. Do you think Ferrari, and also in the comment section down below, do you think Ferrari have the best car at the moment? And do you think that makes them title favourites? Let me know in chat and comments. Just probably gonna go to Twitter in a moment to see if there's any more news during this red flag period, like we did just a moment ago. As thankfully they've got Norris's car back in the pit lane, so hopefully now they can get the session going again in a couple minutes time. Let me just quickly recheck Twitter. And can't really see anything in terms of an update of news. To be honest, my timeline's just full of Russia-Ukraine stuff, so it's pretty hard to see anything about Formula 1 at the moment. But before we get going again, in a minute or 2 minutes time, as Alpine have got the car back in the pit lane, are now working on it, but I still don't think they'll get the car back out, and even if they do, they're going to get probably 20 minutes or so of running. Again, reminder to anyone watching who is new to the channel or just my usual subscribers, I'll be live tonight at 7 PM UK time for as the session will resume in a minute's time. I'll be live tonight for the review of Day 2 at 7 p.m. UK time, where we'll go through all of the events of Day 2. And then tomorrow, I will be live at 11:30 a.m. UK time until 4 p.m. UK time for the entire afternoon session of the final day and the final, 4 hours of pre-season testing. Then live again tomorrow night at 7 p.m. again, UK time, for the review of pre-season testing. And hopefully I'll be joined tomorrow on either stream by Nib. Still yet to confirm on that as to what we're doing. But yeah, make sure to come along to that, later tonight and tomorrow. And if you are new to the channel, then don't forget to subscribe and hit the notifications bell. And as well, smash the like button and share this video and channel everywhere you can. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5 for more updates on, content and stuff like that. As a session will be back underway in 25 seconds time. There's actually quite a crowd at the Bahrain track on the main grandstand. Quite a few people. Great to see. It's not a surprise. Obviously, I went to testing in 2019 in Barcelona. I went to the entire second test, which thankfully at the time it was, what was it? I think it was 8 days of testing then. 2 separate tests. And yeah, I went to the second test. 4 days of testing it was. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed going to testing more than I did going to my first ever Grand Prix, and my only Grand Prix that I've ever gone to, which was also at the Circuit de Catalunya. That was back in 2014 that I went to a Grand Prix, where, of course, Hamilton won from Rosberg in second, and they were like a minute clear of the next car. Yeah, I really enjoyed testing, and if you're, out in this part of the world, or if testing comes to somewhere in Europe and you have the chance to go, then honestly, I would recommend going, because what you're going to get is you're going to get to see more of the cars than you would get to see on a Grand Prix weekend for 4 straight days or 3 straight days, whatever it may be. And there's less fans about, so you'll get better views and you'll be able to get closer to the cars themselves. So, for me, if you're a proper Formula 1 fan, it's definitely something you would want to do. As session is back underway, and we've got Hamilton, Verstappen and Guan Yu Zhou on track. Verstappen there just past the Mercedes. Verstappen back out on the hard compound tyre. And Lewis Hamilton, I think, might be on either the prototype tyre or a C5 compound. Let's see. Hamilton... Oh no, he's on the C4. So hopefully we'll get to see an improvement on time from Lewis Hamilton, as Norris back in the pits, and pretty much his day, I think. Well, no, is he getting back in the car now? So thankfully for him, looks as though it wasn't too big of an issue. Maybe just a precautionary stop, which you do see a lot of in testing, by the way, because they don't want to, wreck the power units and have to, ship a new one in to, have as a spare or have as the, power unit itself. Verstappen continues on. But, yeah, we'll see. And as Lance Stroll has joined the track as well, we'll see what Lewis Hamilton will do on the soft tyre, whether he does go for a quicker run, as Max Verstappen is going for a run on the hard compound tyre. Can't see if he's got DRS open or anything like that. Of course, his best lap time so far of a 1:35.8 was done on the hard tyre, so it is possible that he's going for a bit of a faster run here, but we'll have to see whether that is the case. Opens the DRS up to turn 4. Car goes in very nicely. I think with the Red Bull, when I look at it, the reason I say I think it's one of the best cars out there is, and he runs quite wide in, and does he back off? Yes, he does. He ran quite wide in turn 5. I was actually going to make a point that whenever I look at the Red Bull on track, you can tell that it's a good car because it looks very well balanced, but didn't look great at turn 5. But He is still continuing on, by the look of it, on a bit of a push, but it's probably not going to go any quicker because of that issue at turn 5 and turn 6. But yeah, the Red Bull, to me, it doesn't look as good visually as the Ferrari car, but it definitely looks like a front-running car, and to me, looks better than the Mercedes and the McLaren. This looks, except for that issue we just saw, it just looks incredibly stable. As we have now less than an hour left. As for Verstappen, will he go for another attempt, or will he come back into the pits? He'll come back into the pits as Lewis Hamilton has done an improved middle sector. So maybe Lewis Hamilton on the soft compound will go quicker than his time so far of a 1:35.5. And now he'll come to the line, Lewis Hamilton. And does he go any quicker? Yes, he does, by I think only half a tenth of a second. So he's now onto a 1:35.4 is Lewis Hamilton. And he continues on. And probably will go back into the pits, I'd imagine. And I think it was a 1.931 of a second behind Sainz on that occasion. But if it is incorrect, I'll change it in a moment. As the Mercedes porpoises slightly down to turn 1 on that replay. And oh, that's right. So I noticed he did a slower middle first sector, and look at that. If you're watching on the exit at turn 4, really losing the rear end, quite a bit of oversteer. He did actually a slower first sector than his personal best, and that was why. Because the rear end was just all over the place. As now Magnussen in 9th place in the Haas F1 is now, as he porpoises quite a bit down to turn 1 on the medium tyre. Let's see if Magnussen will improve his time any further. And if he does, then it will go and probably show more evidence of maybe Haas being quicker than Alfa Romeo, if there is any evidence for that. As Magnussen, he's done a non-improved first sector and is 0.8 of a second down in the first sector. Doesn't necessarily mean that he won't go quicker though, because the middle sector he could make an improvement. Now to turn 9 and 10. Car looks pretty good through turn 9 and 10. Slight oversteer on exits. Lando Norris is back out on track, by the way. And into turn 11. Car looks all slightly oversteery on the exit. And now the middle sector point, and he is 2.5 seconds down, so he's not going to improve on this time that he did previously. As he heads now into the final corner, and Magnussen probably will do like a 1:36.8 or something like that. And yeah, I think that's exactly what he did. Oh no, he did a 36.6. Did a improved personal best final sector. First 2 sectors though were an issue. He continues on his way, and we're just seeing now, I think, a replay of him bouncing quite dramatically and violently down the pit straight, which it's funny with all this porpoising talk, because if you guys remember back in Magnussen's the last time he raced in Formula 1 in 2020, there was a race at Imola where he had to retire because he had a severe headache from the car being just out of control and bouncing a lot like it is now. And that's actually what the car was doing. It was porpoising down the straights, and Magnussen basically had an enormous headache and couldn't drive the car anymore. So he will know more than anyone the pain of bouncing like that. As Lando Norris is on the medium compound tyre, and he's done a personal best first sector. Looks as though we're starting to see a bit of a push. Oh, well, not really anymore because he's ran wide at turn 11. That's a shame because I would have liked to have seen what he would have done on that tyre. The Norris, well, we'll see what he'll do. Whether he'll come back in to the pits or whether he'll continue on. And here's a replay of Norris at turn 4. Doesn't quite hit the apex, runs quite a bit wide. And that was, I think, because he didn't quite get into the apex. And yeah, ran clearly off the track. And then here at turn 11. Yeah, just understeer. Just no. I don't think that was necessarily understeer. I think he maybe just carried too much speed into the corner. Because it seemed as though as soon as he turned in, he was heading off, which is a classic sign of going too fast into the corner. As now we're looking at Carlos Sainz on the medium compound tyre. Heading down the straight towards turn 11. And looks as though he's pushing slightly, but he's not quite got the DRS open as Carlos Sainz. So he's not attempting to go any quicker than he did earlier. As we've got quite a few cars on track now. Ferrari, Aston Martin, McLaren, Haas, I think Alfa Romeo. Actually, no, I don't think we have the Alfa Romeo, do we? No, I don't think we do. As the Ferrari continues on its way. Ferrari today have completed 88 laps, I think. Or 87 laps. So, as long as there's no red flags between now and the end, they should get to 100 laps for them. Esteban Ocon has done over 100 laps. That is good for Alpine, despite the reliability issues they had. At least they got 100 laps on the board. Mercedes have got 100 laps, I think. Yeah, just about. I think 102 laps they have so far as Lando Norris now winds up for another run on the C3 compound of tyre. And Yuki Tsunoda, by the way, in the AlphaTauri has done 107 laps. As the Red Bull gets out of the way of Lando. And we'll see what Norris does for his first sector time. Doesn't run anywhere near as wide. And he does an improved first sector. About 0.7 of a second down on Carlos Sainz. A bit ponderous turning into turn 8. Was the McLaren. Now into turn 9 and turn 10. Bumping quite heavily on the entry. Gets through the corner very fine though. And now heads to turn 11, where of course he went off on the previous lap. And understeer again. And almost runs wide and off the track again. So bit of understeer in the McLaren in that corner. And yeah, he's now 2.5 seconds off. He's just not really hooking up a good lap here. McLaren seems to be a bit understeery in a couple corners. In the final corner, looks pretty good, but in a couple others, doesn't look too great. Comes to the line though and goes 3.1 seconds slower than Carlos Sainz, which of course is about 0.9 of a second slower than Carlos Sainz. And Norris continues on his way. He'll probably come back into the pits, I think, in a lap or two. And hopefully we'll see someone else go for a quick run. Oh, as soon as I say that, Max Verstappen, soft compound tyre, let's go. As he's now through turn 1, 2 and 3. DRS now wide open. And let's see what his first sector time will be like. Now into turn 4. And car looks good, as he's 0.04 of a second quicker than Carlos Sainz on that lap. Or on that in that sector, sorry. Into turn 8. And car looks very good through turn 8. He's definitely pushing a lot harder on this lap than we've seen before from Red Bull. Into turn 9 and 10. Yeah, bang on the money. Absolutely bang on the apex for Max Verstappen. Now heading down the straight towards turn 11. And he was running slightly wide then. I thought he was going to head off, but he kept it together. What does he do for the middle sector? He is 4.5 of a second down. And Verstappen now heads to the final corner. Can he make up any time? This should put him second or third. And final corner is very, very good for Max Verstappen. Comes to the line. And Max goes third on a 134.2. It did look a good lap though. But obviously the Ferrari just, quite a bit quicker. So Verstappen on the soft compound tyre up to third position. And I'll now update the times. But that was right there the first, or one of the first lower, maybe not low, but lower fuel runs of the Red Bull. And, well, compared to the Ferrari, clearly slower. So it would point to Ferrari having, at the moment, the quicker car, as Verstappen is exactly 0.7 of a second behind Carlos Sainz. And we've got now, the top 5 within a second of each other. And just a replay of Verstappen's lap. There were, I guess, a couple things with the lap that weren't absolutely bang on. Turn 11, he very nearly drifted off the track. So, yeah, I think he could do a better lap. As Lewis Hamilton now is out on, I think, a set of C5 compound tyres. Yes, he is. So here we go. Let's see what Lewis Hamilton has for us. Let me just update the rest of the times. And there you go. As Hamilton, let's see what he can do for the first sector. In comparison to Sainz, remember Hamilton, just like Verstappen, 0.04 of a second up on Sainz in the first sector. Remember, Hamilton is on a compound softer tyre compared to Sainz. This compound's only 2 or 3 tenths quicker, but in comparison to Verstappen, really, we should see Hamilton, and Mercedes would probably hope that they would go quicker than Red Bull on this compound. Let's see. As he now heads down to turn 11, DRS wide open. And he actually gets through turn 11 better by the looks of it than Max Verstappen did. Now into the middle sector, and he's 3 tenths down on Carlos Sainz. But he is, a tenth and a half quicker than Max Verstappen so far on this lap. As now Hamilton into the final corner and gets through it pretty nicely. Comes to the line, and Lewis Hamilton goes third, 0.6 of a second down in just the final sector. That might point to still Mercedes and Red Bull not pushing as hard on the engine modes. Hamilton, by the looks of it, is continuing on pushing. But honestly, those 2 laps of Hamilton and Verstappen, if you're Ferrari right now, you've got to be very happy because they're still 6-7 tenths of a second clear when they're on similar, if not quicker, tyres. Again, Mercedes and Red Bull, I think, are still probably sandbagging the most out of any team. But, yeah, that is looking good for Ferrari from what we just saw there. That really is looking good for them. So, Lewis Hamilton is up to third place with Max Verstappen down in fourth. And Hamilton is, 6 tenths of a second off. Let me just update the rest here. Before I do Hamilton. And Hamilton, he's not exactly the same as Max Verstappen. He is quicker than that. And yeah, he is 6 tenths of a second down. So now the top 6 within the same second. Yeah, those 2 laps, like I said, as Max Verstappen is back out on track on a set of C4s, I think. Maybe C5s, I don't know. Those 2 laps, considering they were done on similar, if not quicker tyres, for them to still be 6-7 tenths down on Ferrari, if you're Ferrari, surely you've got to have a slight grin on your face. Because that does point to them being pretty quick. And in regards to Lance Stroll, I think with Aston Martin, I mean, maybe we'll see tomorrow whether they do have actually a lot more pace in the car. But I think with Aston Martin, maybe they are running, quite skinny. Maybe not as skinny as possible, but a lot skinnier than Lewis and Max's cars are. So now we're looking at Yuki Tsunoda, who's, by the look of it, doing a quick lap on the hard compound tyre. This is a car that also has looked pretty good from the running we've seen so far. And yeah, car looks pretty good as he now heads down into turn 8. Lando Norris, by the way, is on an outlap. Currently on track, we have Sainz, Stroll, Verstappen, Norris, Tsunoda, and Guan Yu Zhou. As now we are looking at McLaren, the McLaren of Lando Norris, who hopefully is about to try and set a better lap time with the C3 compound tyre. He's had a couple goes on this tyre and not improved, so hopefully this time he can get himself in the action with the other runners in the top 5, top 6. As we now enter the final 40 minutes of day 2. By the way, just to answer Mika's comment in chat, I think either Tsunoda or Mercedes as a whole have completed the most laps, I think. And also kind of close there is Alpine. As Norris has started his lap and is now heading up to turn 4. DRS wide open. We'll see what his first sector time is looking like. And, slight oversteer on the exit, but he corrected it nicely. And very good first sector, considering the tyre he's on. Only half a tenth down on Carlos Sainz. Remember, Sainz on a step softer compound compared to Norris. And, slight instability on the exit. Also, bit of understeer. And Norris gets through turn 9 and turn 10 just fine. Opens the DRS now towards turn number 11. And Norris, hopefully, this time doesn't understeer into turn 11. And gets a bit closer this time to the apex. And let's see what his middle sector time is like. He's only 8 tenths of a second down. In comparison to Mercedes and Red Bull, it's not too bad so far this lap. This will probably keep him in 7th place, to be honest, but it will be a lot quicker than his previous attempt. Oh, bit of understeer at the final corner. That won't help. It'll probably be over a second slower now compared to Carlos Sainz. Comes to the line. And yeah, 1 second off Carlos Sainz there. So let me just update that. That's an improvement of 1.2 seconds for Lando, but not enough to get him any higher up the order. But considering he did that on a medium compound, that's a decent time. As Verstappen there passing the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. As Verstappen now, is he on a lap? No, Carlos Sainz, so he's got DRS right behind Max Verstappen. Going to go for the move on Max, and he does. Nice practice for next week. Verstappen, though, looks as though he's trying to fight it. And he does. He goes right back up the inside for turn 2. Of course, these two collided at turn 4, so hopefully they don't try that again. But yeah, like I said, nice practice for next weekend. Where, of course, Bahrain, even in last year's regs, where the cars were, a lot harder to follow other cars, we had a pretty good Grand Prix. There's a replay, I think, earlier on the lap where Verstappen went down the inside of Sainz at turn 8, and Sainz kind of knew he was there, but turned in a bit. And basically, Verstappen was basically racing Carlos on that lap then, because he went down the inside of him then at the final corner. Then Sainz tried again. Are the FIA, or not the FIA, are FOM like deliberately telling the drivers occasionally try and have a race with someone? We've seen this a couple times now. We saw it with Stroll and Alonso yesterday. But yeah, there you go. As we're now looking at Lance Stroll, who I think is just doing a race sim. He's been doing one for quite a while now in the Aston Martin. And who have we got? We've got Magnussen on an outlap. We've got Sainz, Stroll, Verstappen, Norris, Magnussen, Tsunoda, and Guan Yu Zhou on track. And hopefully, with Kevin Magnussen, we'll get to see another run from the Haas driver who tries to bed back into Formula 1. And I think it's actually, with Kevin, it's actually good that we have all new cars, because obviously everyone is learning what the new cars are like, so he's not going to really lose anything performance-wise to the other drivers. But if he came back, say if we have the same regs for this year that we had last year, it would be a bit tough for him to get back into the swing of things. As Stroll continues on in the Aston Martin. As we've got about 35 or just over 35 minutes to go of day 2. And, well, whilst we wait for another quick lap, I think we have to say that those laps from Hamilton and Verstappen, despite, I think, there still being more speed in those cars, I think we can say that those laps and the laps of a lot of, I guess, rivals or potential rivals of Ferrari kind of confirm that Ferrari, at the moment, they do have the best car. And they are looking very, very good for not just next weekend, but next, or this season. They are looking very, very good. Now, doesn't matter, no, it doesn't matter. Doesn't mean they're going to win the championship. We've seen in previous years that just because you have the quickest car does not mean you're going to win the world title, but they are looking very good to be title contenders. In fact, I'd probably say, given the car they have, you'd probably have to say they are title contenders. As Kevin Magnussen is on a lap, but it's not really a quicker one, and his car looks very bad at the final corner. And, well, it was an attempt at a quicker lap, but he goes slower, does Kevin Magnussen. As Lewis Hamilton is back out on track, hopefully, on another set of soft or C5 soft compound tyres. But yeah, if I was a Ferrari fan right now, I would be extremely excited. I really, really would. I really would. And if you're the rest, then and we've even, I read out the comments from Helmut Marko and Andreas Seidel, and even, Mercedes driver George Russell thinks this. You cannot look at that Ferrari on track and also look at the lap times done so far, given the fuel loads that we all think they're on based on how they're running in comparison to each other. You cannot look at that Ferrari and be like, they're not that quick. They are quick. There is no doubt about it. As Yuki Tsunoda is on an attempt at a quicker lap, but he's round wide at turn 13. And I don't think he'll go any quicker with this lap. As Lance Stroll is also on an out lap, but I think Stroll is just coming into the pits to do a practice stop. As Lando Norris comes into the pits, so does Yuki Tsunoda. Hopefully, in a moment, we'll cut to Lewis Hamilton to see what he's doing and what tyre he is on. As Tsunoda comes in to his pits and will probably come back in. Yeah, he will come back into the garage. And here's a replay of him at turn 13. Slight oversteer on the entry. And then oversteer on the exit. Meaning he had quite a rough time of it through that corner. And yep, Tsunoda back in the pits. And now, here is Lewis Hamilton on a set of C5 tyres, I believe. Yeah, it is. Another set of C5 tyres. So let's see what Lewis Hamilton has for us yet again. Can he go any quicker? Can he raise the morale of the rivals to Ferrari? And he comes into turn 4 and looks okay enough. And he is slightly slower than he was on his previous best. So he's still looking fine. Well, not with that slight lock up into turn 8, but it looks as though he made the corner with a bit of cadence braking. As by the way, Esteban Ocon is back out on track, so they have fixed that car, thankfully, for the final half an hour. DRS is now wide open on the run down to turn 11. And how did he get through this corner? All slight correction through the middle of the exit of that corner. What's he looking like on time, though? He is 0.6 of a second down after the first 2 sectors. So, yeah, he's not going to improve on this time. And again, oversteer on the exit. That Mercedes really does oversteer quite a bit on the exit of corners. And he now comes into the final corner and he understeers like a supermarket trolley. And this will not be an improvement on lap time. Yeah, he's 1.3 seconds down. That Mercedes did not look good on that lap. Yeah, towards the end of the lap, I don't know if it was maybe because of a bit of tyre wear, but yeah, that was a bit of a tough lap. And I think here's a replay. And yeah, oversteer on the exit of turn 1 as well. Very oversteery car. I mean, we know that Lewis Hamilton, he sets his cars up to be very pointy because he likes the rear end to be a bit looser. So he can, because he, just likes his cars to be like that. Likes the front end to just be going into the corner. And here's a replay of Guan Yu Zhou at turn 4. And I don't know what this is a replay of. Is it him getting out of the way? I don't know. I have no idea why they showed that. Esteban Ocon is on a timed run, I think. Yep, he is on the C3 compound. Of course, his best time of a 1:34.2 was done in the morning session on the compound C4 tyre. As Ocon has not done a personal best first sector, neither has he done a personal best middle. So this will be a slower lap for him, as Lewis Hamilton, I think, will probably come back into the pits. And Ocon continues to push on this lap. And hopefully Alpine can get running in for the final half an hour of this session without any more issues, because they need to get in as many laps as they can. And Lewis Hamilton, I think, is still on track, so maybe he's going for another run on the C5 tyre. He's just heading into turn 1 now. I can't quite see if he is on another run. By the way, I've just noticed that I've got the lap time wrong for Guan Yu Zhou. He has actually improved, but he is still last. I'll update the exact tenths in a moment. And yeah, they're just showing a replay of Ocon understeering almost clean off the track at turn 8, which is why he didn't improve on that lap. But yeah, Guan Yu Zhou is still last, 6.5 seconds off the pace. As Yuki Tsunoda is going to come back out on a set of hard compound tyres. So AlphaTauri deciding not to go for a lower fuel run today like they did yesterday. As Verstappen in the pits, no tyres on. They're working on the wheels and the brakes by the look of it. So we'll see if he comes back out on track as Tsunoda does a practice start the exit of the pit lane. Meaning we now have 5 cars on track. Comes through turn 1, 2, and 3. And continues on. But at the moment, with half an hour to go, I think we might get a couple more lower fuel runs from maybe some of the more front runners as Lewis Hamilton actually comes back into the pits. I think we might get a couple more lower fuel runs, but maybe they'll just leave it at that. There is a chance, I think, that they may just leave it at that. The one team, though, that I'm looking at to possibly go for a run on the, say, C4 is the man on screen, Lando Norris. I would like to see what he would do in comparison to the Red Bull and the Mercedes on that tyre, because I think it would allow McLaren to get a good understanding, despite the reliability problems, of where they are pace-wise compared to the other 3 front-running teams, Ferrari, Mercedes and Red Bull. As Tsunoda continues on his out lap. Lando Norris, talking of the devil, is now on an out lap, so hopefully we'll see a faster run from him. Tsunoda, I think, begins... Oh no, he comes back into the pits. I thought he was going to begin a lap. As with Lando Norris, I'll give you an update in a moment as to what he is doing and what tyre he is on and whether he's going to come out on track. As they're showing the double screen on the TV broadcast, as Tsunoda does a practice pit stop. And yeah, they're just working on, I think, the frontal area of the Red Bull, and Norris is on a set of soft tyres, thankfully. Just as I said, it'd be nice to see him do a run on that compound. McLaren have followed my order. So we'll see what he is capable of doing. I think if he can get within 2 or 3 tenths of Sainz's time, that would be a good lap, a properly good lap. If he can only go half a second quicker, then, you know, in comparison to Hamilton and Verstappen, I mean, it's not a bad lap, but it's not, you know, it's not as good as maybe McLaren or McLaren fans will be hoping. So I'm hoping this will put him within, say, 0.3 of a second of Carlos Sainz. Most likely, though, he'll probably only go half a second, maybe 0.6 quicker. Well, he would do if he didn't go straight on almost at turn 1. So this lap is blown. But, yeah, if he does a proper run with no mistakes on that tyre, then I think McLaren would be looking to be second on the, timesheets, but would be looking, like I said, to be 1/4 of a second or 1/3 of a second slower than Sainz to then, come out looking as good as maybe they were hoping or expecting. As Max Verstappen is now back out on track on a set of C4 soft compound tyres. So hopefully we'll see further improvements from him. And Norris just doing possibly another warm-up lap after that mistake. He did a bit of a double front lock-up, which is what caused him to go straight on at turn 1. As I thought I just saw Lewis Hamilton come out on track, or come out of his garage. So, we'll see if Hamilton... No, Hamilton is still in the pits. I think he might have been the Alfa Tauri rather than the Mercedes. But it looks as though Mercedes are going to come out again for another timed run. Probably on the C4 or C5. As Norris is now on another timed run. Let's see what Lando Norris and McLaren have pace-wise right now in 2022. And into turn 1, much better this time. The thing with the McLaren is, on the front end, I've remarked that it doesn't look absolutely there yet, but overall it's a pretty stable car. But again, front end looks a bit wandering at times, as he did wander slightly at turn 4, but he's only 1,000th of a second slower than Carlos Sainz in the first sector. Remember, Carlos Sainz did his best time on the same tyre that Lando Norris is on now. As Norris into turn 9 and 10. Slight oversteer and exit, but really, at that corner, that's what you get. And now into turn 11. Nice wide turn in. And all run slightly wide, but he kept it nicely on track. What's his middle sector time like? Half a second down. Really, that Ferrari, and he's backed off now, but I think because of that mistake. That Ferrari, if you compare it to the Mercedes and the Red Bull and the McLaren, in the first sector, they're all pretty much equal. But in the middle sector, the Ferrari is at least, by the looks of it, 0.3 of a second quicker. And then another 10th or so in the final sector. So it's really the middle sector. And, of course, the corners where Ferrari are making up... or, having the advantage over the others. But Max Verstappen is on a new timed run on the soft compound tyre. Maybe we'll see some more speed from Red Bull. He's now heading to turn 11. And gets in nicely. Yep, doesn't go too wide on the exit of turn 11. And for the middle sector time, he is... almost 0.3 down. Like I said, in the first sector, they're all pretty much equal. But in that middle sector, Ferrari seemed to have like a 2 or 0.3 of a second advantage. And then now into the final sector and into the final corner, and always run wide. He would have lost probably a tenth and a half in that final corner. Max Verstappen goes second with that run. And is, 0.4 of a second down. He could, though, have gone quicker. Could Max Verstappen. because, and we're seeing it now, he kind of caught the curb, and then the curb, as curbs normally do, they kind of just pull you towards the curb itself, and then you end up straddling it. So that's pretty much what Verstappen did. So, like I said, there's probably an extra 1/10 of a second in there. And, oh, Jesus Christ, Lance Stroll, a massive lock-up, or quite, maybe not massive, but quite a big lock-up into turn 8, but absolute monstrous understeer in turn 8, a corner they have really struggled in all test so far. As now we are looking at Lewis Hamilton, who it appears is on a set of soft tyres, and he is. Can't see though any data in terms of, you know, the running timer. Show what his, you know, sector times are like and all of that. Yeah, Verstappen up to, and Hamilton has done a slow first sector, so this is not really a quick lap from Hamilton. But yeah, 20 minutes to go. We'll see if he does put in a quicker lap, and, you know, Mercedes, will they try and respond to what Red Bull just did with Max Verstappen. Gotta say, that time for Verstappen, even though he is, you know, he made a mistake on that lap at the final corner, and the middle sector, it did seem as though the Ferrari on time just, you know, was looking better. I still think that's a pretty decent time for Verstappen. It puts him in the range of Ferrari, and it probably makes it look more so like Ferrari don't have, you know, an absolute all-dominant pace difference between them and the rest, as Hamilton finishes that lap. But it is that lap, what, 5 seconds down? Almost. I think 4.5 seconds down, actually, on the rest of his main rivals. And, yeah, Toto, Russell, James Vowles just sat there looking at the screen. As we're now looking at Esteban Ocon, who is currently sat in 5th place on the C3 medium compound tyre. No idea if he's pushing on this lap. I think he is, because he's got the DRS open now down to turn 11. And yeah, I'm pretty sure he is pushing. He's not done an improved first sector though, so let's see what his middle sector is like. And it is, no, not that good. About 0.5 second slower than his previous best. So he will not improve on this effort. And looking to see if there's any more action. Yuki Tsunoda, I think, keeps doing practice pit stops. Kevin Magnussen's doing a bit of a longish run. Ocon, kind of as well. And then Carlos Sainz and Lance Stroll are doing a long run. We know that because they've been out on track for quite a while. And then Verstappen and Hamilton look as though they're on a bit of a shorter fueled run, as we're looking at Mick Schumacher on the back of Mick Schumacher, watching the cars. And you can tell by looking at him, if you are watching the session along with me, that it is quite windy still at the Bahrain International Circuit track in Sakhir. And Magnussen, we're just looking at now, who they're probably looking out for, continues on his run on the medium compound tyres. Good run for Haas today, you know, to be quicker on the overall times compared to Alfa Romeo. Definitely showing a lot more speed now. are Alfa or are the Haas F1 team, but still not looking that great, really. But at least they're looking, in comparison to Alfa Romeo, somewhat competitive. Because the worst thing you can have in F1, as he understeers horribly at turn 13, the worst thing you can have in Formula 1 is to be in Formula 1 and be, so slow that you have no one to race but yourselves. That's probably the worst case you can have as a team. And obviously the best case you can have as a team is racing just yourselves, but at the front of the field. As Magnussen continues on through turn 1, 2, and 3, as Esteban Ocon comes back into the pits. There's a red flag for some reason. I don't know why. With what, 14 minutes to go? Is this why? Oh, a lot of smoke come out the brakes there for Ocon, but I don't think that's what's caused the red flag. Session suspended, cars return to pit lane. I don't know if is this a test of the red flag system? I was going to say, we've already had red flags and they seem to work fine, so I don't really know why they're red flagging the session. Unless there's debris somewhere that we haven't seen. As continues to wave the red flag. Verstappen now coming back into his garage. And yeah, we'll try and find out what this red flag is about. As all the cars that were out on track now come back in to their pit box. Hopefully not for the end of the day, but yeah, that's not great timing. Not great timing. And yeah, Norris is wheeled back in. I'll just quickly clear my throat a moment. And Lewis Hamilton is now coming back in, probably the last car to come back in on track. Still don't know why there's a red flag. Let me look to see if I can find out why, because I don't really know why you'd throw out a red flag just randomly. All right, so red flag that the second race start test that Chris Medland had talked about previously on his Twitter account is taking place with 15 minutes remaining. So, well, what does that mean? Does that mean they're all gonna practice? Yeah, probably. Let me see if there's any other news quickly that I can bring you guys before probably the end of this session. If there's anything else to Charles Leclerc I'm seeing, but nothing too dramatic in terms of any statements. I think, though, that's pretty much the end of testing today. If they're going to do the, what do you call it, a race restart, because I don't really know what they're actually going to do in terms of this whole thing. Are they going to bring all the cars out on track and do a race start thing? I don't know. Seems to me the session is basically over. So I think, guys, I'll call this or bring this to an end. Thank you guys for coming along to this watch along for day 2 of 2022 pre-season testing. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Again, I will be live later tonight at 7 PM UK time, so in about 3 hours, or just over 3 hours from now, to review the events of day 2 and go over all of the teams and how they're looking going into, of course, the final day of testing tomorrow. And again, I'll be live tomorrow at 11:30 AM UK time to cover the final 4 hours of pre-season testing tomorrow. And then, of course, later that evening at 7 PM UK time, I'll be reviewing pre-season testing, and we'll basically cast our iron on who is looking the quickest and what the pecking order really is in Formula 1 coming into the new season. But yeah, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Bottom right of the screen, you do it right there. As well, don't forget to hit the notifications bell and smash the like button, share this video and channel everywhere you can. And don't forget as well to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5 and join my Discord server. There's a link below to that Discord server. But guys, until my review of day 2 in 3 hours and 10 minutes time basically from now, it has been me, ChazHD. Goodbye.